Maya ran a small cupcake stand outside a grocery store in Chicago, trying to make ends meet after leaving her abusive husband. Every evening, she packed the same pink boxes, forcing a smile for strangers who barely noticed her. But one man kept coming back, always dressed in black, always paying in cash, never saying much. There was something cold about him, something dangerous. Still, he looked at her like he already knew her story. The day he finally spoke, he didn't ask for cupcakes. He said he had a proposal, one that could change everything. Maya woke up before sunrise to bake. The tiny apartment smelled of sugar and exhaustion. Bills covered her counter like a second skin, each one a reminder that freedom had a price. She balanced her daughter's breakfast with frosting trays and invoices, moving like someone too tired to dream. The cupcake stand wasn't much, but it was hers. Every dollar she made pushed the past a little further away, or so she told herself. She'd escaped a man once. She wouldn't let another take control, not her boss, not her customers, not anyone ever again. By 8 a.m., she wheeled her stand to its usual spot near the grocery entrance. Locals passed with grocery bags and rushing feet. Most didn't look up, except for one old man who waved every morning out of habit. Maya had learned to survive invisibility, but sometimes invisibility hurt, like when she'd catch her reflection in the display glass and realize she didn't recognize the woman behind it anymore. Then around noon, the black car appeared again. Same one as yesterday. Same man behind the wheel, watching the stand like it held something more than cupcakes. He stepped out, tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a dark coat that seemed too formal for the neighborhood. His eyes scanned everything. The street, her hands, the cupcakes, like he was memorizing a map. He handed her a 20, bought one vanilla cupcake, and said nothing. Maya waited for a smile, a word, anything, but he only nodded and left. She watched him disappear into the busy street. The cupcake stayed untouched in his hand. That was the third day in a row he'd done the same thing, and Maya couldn't tell if she was intrigued or afraid. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. Her mind replayed his stare, not cruel, not kind, just sharp, like he could see through the version of herself she showed the world. She tried to shake it off, blaming exhaustion, but something about him stuck. Her daughter Lily slept soundly beside her, clutching a stuffed rabbit. Maya brushed the girl's hair aside and whispered a promise that nothing bad would touch them again. But when she turned out the light, a strange feeling lingered, like someone somewhere had already decided that promise for her. The next day was colder. Maya wrapped herself in a worn sweater, pretending not to check the street every few minutes. When he arrived, she felt her pulse jump. This time, he looked different. Not in his clothes, but in how he moved, slower, heavier. He asked quietly, "You make these yourself?" His voice was calm but carried something that didn't belong to ordinary life. Maya nodded. He bought 2 cupcakes and walked away, leaving exact change. It was the first real word exchange they'd had. Somehow, it made him even harder to ignore. By the 5th visit, Maya's curiosity started to replace her caution. She told herself she was imagining things, that he was just another regular, but his routine never changed. He showed up. Same time, same place, same serious expression. One day, when rain poured and the streets emptied, he still came. Water ran off his coat, dripping onto the pavement. Maya wanted to ask why he bothered. But instead, she handed him a cupcake for free. He paused, stared at her hand for too long, and took it. No smile, just a nod that felt final. Lily noticed before Maya did. One afternoon, the little girl drew a picture while sitting near the stand, a stick figure of her mom, a table of cupcakes, and a tall man with no face. "That's the shadow man," Lily said proudly. "He always watches you." Maya laughed it off, but her stomach twisted. She hadn't told Lily about him, yet her daughter seemed to know. That night, she hid the drawing in a drawer, trying not to think about it. Still, she found herself waiting for the shadow man the next morning without even realizing it. When he arrived again, Maya greeted him first, surprising herself. "Back for your usual?" she asked, pretending it was a joke. He didn't answer, only glanced at her hands before handing over the money. For a second, their fingers brushed. His skin was rough, marked with small scars that looked deliberate. He left without a word, but Maya stood there long after, staring at the cupcake box. She told herself it was nothing, just another customer, but deep down, a part of her wondered if danger could ever feel this quiet. That evening, as Maya packed up, she noticed something strange. One of the boxes she'd just stacked had a red thread wrapped around it, tied into a small knot. It wasn't hers. She hadn't used red thread for anything. She looked around. The street was empty, except for a man sweeping across the road. Her chest tightened. The thread was thin, delicate, almost symbolic. She untied it, unsure why it made her uneasy, and pocketed it without thinking. Later that night, she'd find herself touching it absent-mindedly, as if it meant something she wasn't ready to understand. Days passed, but the visits continued. Maya's stand had become something more than a business. It was a stage where silence performed daily. Each exchange with him felt rehearsed, predictable, and yet heavy with unspoken weight. She noticed how people stepped aside when he approached, as if they sensed something she couldn't see. Maya didn't know his name, but she'd memorized his every habit. She hated that. It reminded her of her ex, of learning patterns to survive. Only this time, she wasn't sure if she was surviving or walking straight into another kind of trap. He finally broke the silence one morning. "You always start early," he said. Maya nodded, wiping her hands on her apron. His tone wasn't friendly, it was curious, almost investigative. He asked how long she'd been there, how business was, and if she ever worked nights. The questions were ordinary, but his eyes weren't. They studied her face like every blink was data. Maya answered politely, but her guard rose higher. There was no small talk in his voice, only intent. Whatever this was, it wasn't about cupcakes anymore. The next time he came, he didn't buy anything. He just stood there. Maya tried to ignore him, serving other customers, but his silence pressed against her like a weight. When everyone left, he leaned forward slightly, asking, "Does your husband ever come around?" Maya froze. Her mind screamed questions, but her face stayed calm. "No," she said, too quickly. He nodded and walked away. For the first time, Maya didn't feel seen. She felt exposed. How could he know she even had a husband? And why did he sound like he already knew the answer? That night, Maya sat by the window with a cup of tea, watching rain streak down the glass. She thought about his questions, his timing, his steady visits. Every pattern pointed toward purpose. Maybe he was just another strange man. Or maybe he was connected to something darker. She remembered the red thread still in her apron pocket. It felt heavier now, like a sign she wasn't supposed to ignore. She tried to convince herself that she was safe. But part of her knew, the moment you start believing you're safe is when you're not. A week later, two men appeared near her stand, suits too sharp for the neighborhood, voices too quiet to trust. They asked a vendor next to her if she'd seen someone named Greg Torres. Maya's breath caught. That was her ex-husband's name. She pretended not to hear, but their eyes met hers briefly, suspiciously. By the time they left, she couldn't breathe right. That night she lay awake listening to every noise outside her window, praying the next knock wouldn't be from her past. The black car returned, but she didn't wait for him to approach. When he stepped out, she asked bluntly, "Did you send those men?" His calm expression didn't change. "You're safer than you think," he said, placing money on the counter. Then he left. Maya's heart raced as his words echoed in her mind. Safer from what? From who? It wasn't comfort, it was a warning. That night she dreamed of her ex pounding on the door again, his voice blending with thunder. When she woke, the air outside smelled faintly of rain and smoke. The next day felt different. People came and went, but Maya barely noticed. Her focus was split between fear and curiosity. She hated that part of herself, the one that always needed to know the truth, no matter the cost. Around noon, he appeared again, as if drawn by her thoughts. "You shouldn't worry so much," he said, his tone almost gentle. She stared at him, trying to read his intent. "Why do you care?" she asked quietly. He didn't answer. He just turned and left, leaving the smell of cologne and something colder behind. The next morning, Maya found a small jar left on her stand before she arrived. A jar of imported honey, labeled in Italian. No note. She knew exactly who had left it. She wanted to throw it away, but curiosity got the better of her. She opened it. The scent was sweet but sharp, unfamiliar. She took a small taste. It burned slightly, then melted smooth. She couldn't explain why, but the gesture felt strange, almost like a message. She locked it in her drawer, promising herself she'd never use it. Promises, she knew, were fragile things. Business picked up again for a few days, enough to distract her. But then the black car came back. This time it parked farther away, as if testing her reaction. She didn't look up, didn't wave, but she knew he was there. She could feel it, that quiet, watchful presence that had somehow become part of her life. The red thread, the honey, the strange questions, it was all building to something. Maya felt it in her chest, an ache that wasn't quite fear, but wasn't safety either. Something was coming. She could sense it. Her friend, Carla, stopped by the stand and joked about her mystery customer. Maya brushed it off, saying he was harmless. But even as she said it, she didn't believe it. Carla laughed, whispering, "Men like that don't buy cupcakes, they buy silence." The words stuck with Maya the rest of the day. She caught herself glancing at every passing car, every shadow that lingered too long. When night fell, she packed up early, but before leaving, she noticed the jar of honey sitting on the edge of the counter. She hadn't put it there. That night, Maya watched Lily sleep again. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the fridge and the faint buzz of streetlights outside. She turned the honey jar in her hands, watching how it caught the glow. It was beautiful, but she couldn't shake the unease it brought. She thought about how easily sweetness hides danger, how something that looks harmless can still hurt you. She tucked Lily's blanket tighter, whispering a prayer she wasn't sure she believed in. For now they were safe. Tomorrow, she'd have to face whatever was really happening. The next day, a sudden power outage hit the block just as the afternoon crowd gathered. The hum of machines stopped. The lights flickered out, and the city went still. Maya's heart raced. She stood frozen, clutching her cash box. Somewhere in the distance, a car engine revved, then went silent. For a full minute, the world felt suspended. When power finally returned, she saw a small detail that made her blood run cold. The red thread had been tied around her stand handle again, knotted the same way as before. That night, she double-checked the locks and peered through the blinds. Her phone buzzed once. A message from an unknown number. It read, "Stay put tonight." Maya dropped the phone. Her first instinct was to run, but where? She checked on Lily, then turned off every light except one in the hallway. Hours passed. Nothing happened. But when she opened her door at dawn, she found muddy footprints on the steps, too large to be hers. One led directly to her doorknob, where a piece of red thread dangled, tied in a bow. Maya's nerves were stretched thin. She knew she couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. The man's presence wasn't random, it was deliberate. But was he protecting her or threatening her? She couldn't tell anymore. Each day her fear grew heavier, but so did her curiosity. Why her? What did he want? She caught herself thinking of his calm eyes and the strange way he never seemed afraid of anything. She hated that a part of her trusted him more than she trusted anyone else. That was the scariest part of all. She made a decision. After closing the stand one night, she followed his car. It wasn't hard. It moved slow, deliberate, like it wanted to be followed. The trail led to the city's north side, a neighborhood full of expensive houses and black gates. She parked half a block away and watched as he entered a mansion guarded by men in suits. For a moment, she caught sight of him through a window, sitting across from someone she recognized. Her breath caught. It was her ex-husband's old business partner. Everything inside her went cold. The next morning, Maya opened her stand as usual, but nothing felt normal anymore. Every sound, every glance from a stranger made her flinch. When he arrived, she didn't speak. She waited for him to say something. Anything. Instead, he placed money on the counter, but this time, his eyes softened just a little. "You shouldn't have followed me," he said quietly. Then he walked away, leaving her frozen in place. She didn't know how he knew, but he was right. She'd crossed a line. And whatever this was, it had only just begun. The next day, Maya couldn't focus on anything. Every noise startled her. She burned a whole tray of cupcakes because her hands wouldn't stop shaking. The man hadn't come back, and that scared her more than his presence ever had. Around noon, she saw the black car again, parked across the street, but empty. She stood frozen, watching it for hours. When it finally pulled away, a strange peace settled over her, like silence after thunder. But deep inside, she knew it wasn't over. She'd seen too much, and he knew she had. He returned 2 days later, as if nothing had happened. The same coat, the same calm, the same controlled steps. Maya wanted to scream at him, but when he looked at her, her words failed. "You followed me," he said simply. Not angry, just matter of fact. "You shouldn't have." She asked why. Why he was watching her. Why he cared. He studied her face, then said, "Because you're already part of this, whether you know it or not." Before she could ask what this meant, he left, leaving her shaking and more confused than ever. That night, Maya couldn't sleep. She thought about every interaction, every word, every glance. Part of this echoed in her mind like a warning. Around midnight her phone buzzed, another message from the unknown number. This time it read, "Ask him about Greg Torres." Her stomach dropped. That was her ex-husband. The man she'd run from. The man she thought was long gone. Maya deleted the text instantly, but the damage was done. She knew she couldn't ignore it anymore. Tomorrow she'd demand answers. No more silence. No more fear. When he came the next morning, she didn't hide behind small talk. "You know my ex-husband," she said. His expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Regret maybe, or guilt. "I did," he said. "He worked for me once." Maya's blood went cold. "Worked for you? Doing what?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "He made mistakes," the man said quietly. "Dangerous ones. I gave the order to end it. But someone stopped me." The words hit like a knife. He wasn't just a stranger. He was the man who decided her husband's fate. Maya sat in her kitchen that night, the jar of honey glowing faintly under the light. Lily slept peacefully, unaware of how close their lives were to something dark. Maya twisted the honey lid open, dipped her finger, and tasted it again. It was sweet. Too sweet. She thought about the man's calm eyes, his control, his guilt. Maybe he wasn't just dangerous. Maybe he was broken too. She stared at the red thread on the counter and whispered, "What are you protecting me from?" The only answer was the hum of the fridge and her own heartbeat. The next day, he showed up early. No black car, just him. He said her name for the first time. "Maya, I need to tell you something." Hearing her name from his mouth felt strange, almost intimate. He told her the truth about her husband's betrayal. Greg had stolen money, names, and information that could have gotten people killed. "You were never his victim," he said softly. "You were his shield." Maya's stomach twisted. Everything she'd believed about her past was cracking. She realized she hadn't escaped danger, she'd just been hidden from it. He told her his name, Dante Russo. It sounded like something out of a warning label. He explained that he'd watched over her for years, quietly, from a distance. When she ran away, he let her go. But when Greg resurfaced recently, planning revenge, Dante had no choice but to step back in. "I'm not here to scare you," he said. "I'm here because I owe you my protection." Maya wanted to scream that she didn't need him, but when she looked at him, she saw something rare, sincerity, and that made her even more afraid. Then came the proposal. Dante wanted her to manage a bakery he'd bought downtown, a legitimate business, clean, under her name. He called it protection, a way to give her stability and shield her from anyone looking. Maya saw it differently. Control, another man deciding her life. She refused, but Dante didn't argue. "Think about Lily," he said quietly, before walking away. Maya watched him leave, torn between anger and confusion. She didn't know which scared her more, his power, or the fact that he might actually care. That night, Maya couldn't shake the unease. She stayed up late, scrolling through old photos of Greg. The smile she once loved now looked hollow. She realized how much of her life had been built on lies. Around 2 a.m., her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a photo, Lily walking home from school. The caption read, "She looks just like you." Maya's heart stopped. She ran to Lily's room. Safe. Asleep. She called Dante without hesitation. No answer. She tried again. This time, he picked up and said, "I know, I'm already on it." By morning, she couldn't sit still. Every noise outside sounded like a threat. She paced the apartment until Dante arrived. His tone was calm, but his jaw was tight. "It's Greg," he said. "He's nearby." Maya's knees nearly gave out. Dante assured her Lily was safe for now, but the situation was spiraling. He told her everything, how Greg had stolen from the Mafia, betrayed the wrong people, and vanished. Dante had spared his life once because of her. "He's coming for you," Dante said quietly, "and I won't let that happen again." If you're wondering how Maya's story ends, you're not alone. Stay with me to see what choice she makes next. The apartment felt too small, too exposed. Dante moved her and Lily to a safe house by the lake. Maya didn't argue. Watching Lily play on the porch, she realized fear had become part of her daily routine. She asked Dante why he cared so much. He said he was making up for the lives he'd ruined, one person at a time. Maya didn't know if she believed him, but when he looked at Lily, she saw something gentle in his expression, something she hadn't expected from a man like him. Days passed without word from Greg. Then one morning, Maya found a note under the door. It read, "You can't hide behind him forever." There was no signature, but she knew who it was from. Panic surged through her. She ran outside, shouting for Dante, but he was already there, standing by his car, phone pressed to his ear. "He's moving fast," Dante said, hanging up. "It ends tonight." Maya's stomach twisted. What does that mean? But Dante didn't answer. He just looked at her like he'd already decided what needed to be done. That night, the lake house was quiet. Too quiet. Maya put Lily to bed early, locking every door and window. She sat by the window, watching headlights flicker in the distance. Dante's car was gone. She didn't know where he was or what he planned to do. Then her phone buzzed. A message from him. "Stay inside, no matter what you hear." Minutes later she heard it. Shouting, footsteps, a crash. She held Lily close, whispering prayers she hadn't said in years. The noise stopped as suddenly as it began. Then came silence. When Dante returned, his coat was torn, and his hands were shaking. "It's done," he said. Maya didn't ask what that meant. She didn't want details. He sat down heavily, staring at the floor. "He's gone," he whispered. Maya didn't know if he meant dead or disappeared, and she didn't want to. What mattered was that Lily was safe. For the first time in years, Maya felt like she could breathe. But when she looked at Dante, she saw the weight in his eyes. Protection came with a cost, and he'd paid it. In the days that followed, the tension eased, but not the questions. Maya wanted to know who Dante really was, beyond the Mafia stories and shadows. One afternoon, she asked him what he would have done if Greg hadn't betrayed him. I would have left, he said quietly. I was already planning to walk away, but then you appeared. Maya didn't know how to respond. The world she'd built on fear was now tangled with someone who lived inside it willingly. She didn't trust him completely, but she couldn't deny the strange sense of safety he brought. The safe house became their strange new normal. Dante stayed close but distant, always watching, always planning. Maya started baking again to calm her nerves, filling the kitchen with warmth. One evening, Dante entered quietly and set a small red thread on the table. "It's yours," he said. "You dropped it." Maya frowned. "You kept this?" He nodded. "It reminded me why I was doing this." She didn't understand at first. Then she realized it wasn't about control. It was guilt, his way of keeping her life from falling apart again, even if his own already had. Maya began to see Dante differently after that. The coldness she once feared had softened. He'd stop by her stand sometimes, quietly buying cupcakes without saying much. One day she asked him if he ever regretted what he'd done. He said, "Every day." Then he smiled faintly and added, "But protecting you doesn't feel like regret." Maya didn't know if it was a confession or a warning, but in that moment, she realized she no longer saw him as the man who ruined her life. He was the one who'd kept it intact. Weeks passed, and Maya decided to accept his offer. The bakery. It wasn't about the money or the safety anymore. It was about taking control. She would make it hers, not his. Dante handed her the keys silently. The building was small, clean and full of light. "You'll be safe here," he said. Maya nodded but didn't reply. As he left, she watched him go, realizing she might never fully understand him, but maybe that was okay. Some people were meant to exist between danger and salvation, and Dante was one of them. The bakery opened quietly. Locals came for cupcakes, not knowing the story behind them. Maya named it Red Thread Cupcakes. The name felt right, a reminder of everything that tied her to where she was now. Dante came by on the first day, leaving a $1 on the counter. No words, just a look that said everything. For the first time, Maya didn't feel like she was running from her past. She was building something new from it, something hers. A few weeks later, Maya found a letter slipped under the bakery door. It was from Dante. He wrote that he was leaving Chicago for good. "You're safe now," the note said. "You don't need me anymore." Maya folded the letter carefully, her chest tightening. She wanted to be angry, but all she felt was gratitude and something quieter, like loss. She placed the letter in the register drawer beside a small piece of red thread. Time passed. The bakery flourished. Maya hired help, expanded, and started sleeping peacefully again. Every morning she'd check the door, half hoping to see Dante. He never came. But sometimes she'd spot a black car parked down the street, engine running, never staying long. She'd smile faintly and return to her work. Maybe he was watching from a distance again. Maybe he never really left. Lily started school, proud of her mom's new shop. She'd tell everyone her mom sells magic cupcakes. Maya laughed every time she heard it. In a way, it was true. The cupcakes had saved them, not with magic, but with survival. Each batch she baked carried a story she'd never tell anyone. The smell of sugar and honey filled the air, replacing the fear that used to linger. The bakery wasn't just a business now. It was proof that even broken lives could rise again. One afternoon, Maya found another jar of imported honey left on the counter. No note, no name. She smiled, recognizing the gesture instantly. She placed it beside the cash register without opening it. Some things were meant to stay untouched. Symbols, not answers. She looked out the window and saw a car in the distance, dark and still. She didn't wave, but she didn't look away either. Some connections weren't meant to be broken, only understood. Maya locked up the bakery that evening and walked Lily home through the soft Chicago dusk. The air smelled like rain and sugar. Lily held her hand tightly, skipping ahead. For the first time in years, Maya felt calm, truly calm. No fear, no waiting for the next storm. Just life, simple and sweet. She thought of Dante, wherever he was, and hoped he'd found his own peace too. Some debts could never be paid, but some kindnesses didn't need to be. The next morning, Maya arrived early, unlocking the bakery as sunlight spilled through the glass. On the counter sat a single cupcake box, tied with a red thread. Inside was a note. "For the life you saved." Maya smiled softly, her eyes stinging. She placed the box on display and whispered, "For the life you changed." The world outside kept moving, people rushing, cars passing, but inside everything felt still. The past was behind her, and the future, uncertain as it was, finally felt hers.